All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Tessa Rasmussen, and I work at USU Credit Union here on campus. This is a presentation that I give 15-minute overview of some financial resources on campus and some of my rules of thumb that I suggest for students in my experience working with students. So I'm going to skip this slide. This is something we do when we're in person. If you have questions, our branch on campus, the branch address is, I'll skip to it right here. This is the branch on campus. Our address is 890 East, 700 North. So this is one of the resources that is on campus, but that's where you can go with questions or my contact information. I will ask Reagan to put with this presentation. But a little bit about me, I am a third generation Aggie. I got my bachelor's degree here, I got my master's degree here, and I work here. So I'm a big Aggie fan, and I'm so excited for these incoming freshmen, these students, for the experiences that they're going to have. This is a great place to be. So you guys will also have the opportunity to hear from Daryl Harris. Daryl is the director of the Student Money Management Center. So this center, I always like to highlight, it's a phenomenal resource for students. This is a group of financial planners who will sit with your student and they will make a budget. And this will look like as in-depth as you want it to be, usually like an hour meeting, and they go over, this is an example right here on the right side of what that budget looks like. So I recommend doing this at some point during your time at USU because of the invaluable personal information that they can give you. So I put the website right there, Smart Money Management Center, or sorry, Student Money Management Center. And then, yeah, our branch on campus. So we are part of the credit union co-op system, which means that if you bank at a credit union, that's also part of the co-op. You can use our ATMs and come into our branch and access that account for free. So that is a resource for students. Even if they don't bank with us, they can come in, they can ask questions. We can double check if their financial institution is part of that shared branching network. Mount America and America First, which are big ones, they're not part of the shared branching network, but they are part of the shared ATM network. So our ATM in this building, and then there's also one in the TSC, can be used with those if you have that financial institution. Okay, and then this is where I move into some of my advice that I try to give to students, some of the rules of thumb that I try to live by. So we're going to jump right in. Thinking of your savings as an investment is something that I think is really helpful. And it's a good reminder for students that they are still making progress and investing, even if they don't have a large like 401k or IRA that they're contributing to, or they're not putting money in the stock market. Having money in savings is a huge investment, and it's a great way to give yourself a buffer to protect that budget that you have, but also to give you more control in your life. So my kind of simplified take on budgeting is, and this is what I did when I was in school. I didn't have the bandwidth to budget and write down everything that I bought. There are apps and resources that you can link that will do that for you, make it easier. But something that was really helpful for me is I set up a transfer from my checking to my savings. So that idea of paying yourself first, you can make it automatic. And I think most financial institutions will do this. You can go on their website or on the app and set an amount and a date that you want that transfer to happen. So I still do this. When I get paid, a chunk goes into savings, and I know I am not spending more than I'm making. I have that set aside, tucked away in a safe place. Then from there, I think of my checking account as my spending zone. That is that's the money I have. I ignore savings. That's out of sight, out of mind, hopefully. And from there, kind of work through prioritizing needs. And that comes down to also, what is the value that you hold? Like, what do you value? For me, when I was in school, I valued saving money and getting through school without needing student loans. I think that's something a lot of students share. So that looked like for me, working while I was in school, saving a lot of money. I had to, sacrifice on a few things, did some fun things, but having a really clear why in your head, research shows it's easier to stick to a budget if you can visualize and see like why you're doing it. So also, I recommend to students, maybe you have a picture or something like you in Spain, if you're trying to go and study abroad, why are you budgeting? It makes it easier to commit to yourself and to, keep at it. And then something I do for wants is I have this, I think I probably saw it on like a social media somewhere, but the idea of double it. If you want to buy something and it's not necessarily something you need, I always try to make sure I have at least double the amount in my checking or saved up for wants before I buy it. So that example would look like if I'm trying to buy or want to buy a new pair of AirPods and they're $90, I would wait to buy them until I have at least $180 in my checking. So that's kind of how I use these tools to maintain a budget. Something else that is important to consider is you are saving money. Is your money working for you? So this is, I think, a concept we're all familiar with, but double check your student. Where is their money going and how high of a yield is it earning? How much work is it doing for them? So these are some good options that I would say most financial institutions would have, or you can ask about their options for money markets, which are completely liquid, and certificates of deposit, which, depending on the term, have they have less flexibility with withdrawing and depositing funds. So the next thing that I like to talk about is using credit strategically. This is a question I get a lot from students, and it's important to have a plan. I don't think there's one right way to do this, except for have a plan and do it your way. So why does it matter to start thinking about credit, especially you're just, a lot of freshmen are just 18. You're just barely getting started. Credit history, part of what gives you a good credit history is how long you've had it. And so starting it younger can be helpful, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But your credit score impacts not just your lending options of how much you can borrow, but also how much they're going to charge you for what you're borrowing. Also, insurance companies will look at your credit score. Rental, like a landlord will look at your credit score. And this is becoming more common, and employers sometimes will look at your credit score. So I meet students and they look so lovely, and I'm like, oh, you look amazing. I think we would be friends. I don't know them. This is kind of a way that you assess reliability. And what is it based on? It's based on your history of borrowing money. So this is why it's something to think about. It impacts more than just lending. So we throw the word credit around a lot. Credit score and credit report, credit card. A credit score is like your financial GPA. The credit report is like a grade report. It has all the details, what loan you had, when you last paid it, how much was on it, if you were ever late, similar to a grade report saying, what class you took, what grade you got, things like that. And then a credit score is just generated from that report information. So a lot of times it's just a snapshot look of what's going on. And then a credit card is just a type of loan. It's a revolving loan that you have a limit that you get from a lender, bank or credit union. So this is the breakdown of a FICO score, which is the most common way of generating a credit score is with a FICO score. The two biggest things that affect your credit score are your payment history and your credit utilization. So students that have questions about this, the most important thing is focusing on these two things. So your payment history is making at least your minimum payment every month. or if you don't owe anything, right? You don't have to make a payment, but if you owe something on revolving loans, pay it every month, or if you have an installment loan, like a vehicle, you're paying it every month as agreed, at least the minimum. So credit utilization, is referring to revolving loans like credit cards. And a revolving loan is you're given a balance, you can borrow the full balance, pay it back, and keep doing that. So it's circular that's where the word revolving comes from. Installment loans like student loans, mortgages, vehicles, you're given a set, you take out a certain amount, maybe $10,000 for a car, and then you pay it back in increments. And once it's paid back, it closes out. So you can't re-advance that $10,000. So with revolving loans like credit cards, you want to keep your balance as low as possible. And the balance is the amount you have at the end of the month. Maybe the due date is the 20th. If you pay it all back by the 20th, you're not actually being charged interest on your credit cards. But if you carry a balance over on your credit card to the next month, you're charged interest on that balance. So not only can this get expensive because credit card interest rates are 20 to 30%, but it also can hurt your credit score. You want to keep your credit utilization, what amount of your balance you're using, as low as possible. So 30% of your score is keeping your balance 30% or less. I recommend, if you do decide to get a credit card, use it like a debit card. Use it and pay it off at the end of the month. I started building credit this way. It's a pretty accessible way to start building credit. I got a credit card with a limit of $500, and my dad co-signed, and I used it for gas, and I paid it off at the end of the month. And that gave me the payment history. It gave me the credit utilization of 0, which is the best score in this case. And then I started building that length of credit history. The other things that come with time is your credit mix. This is of the variety of loans that you have. I don't recommend just getting a car loan and a credit card just for the sake of credit mix. That will come with time. And then credit inquiries is how many new loans you apply for. And it's 10% of your score. And ideally, there's different recommendations, but about four to six in a 2-year period is usually fine. Depending on other factors, like if you have a really strong payment history and really strong credit utilization, having a credit inquiry will not affect you as much, but it is something to consider. So great resources for finding more about credit scores like FICO and credit bureaus and kind of how they function would be, I use the Experian app on my phone. So Experian is one of the credit bureaus, and it's free to use. There's like a paid version. You don't need the paid version. But the Experian app, I can look and see my credit score and my credit report, and it doesn't affect my credit. It's not a credit inquiry or a hard credit pull. It's just information only. So that is something I recommend. And nerdwallet.com is also really great for questions on stuff like this. Okay, using debt wisely. So students ask a lot about student loans, which I get. It's a big question and it's a super personal question. So what I recommend is considering, again, having a plan. If you have a plan, that's awesome. It will be worth your while to research some options and decide what's best for you, because there's lots of paths to success. So opportunity cost, something to consider. A bachelor's degree on average will increase your yearly earnings by a lot of money, by like 30 grand. So if you're able to, with a student loan, be less stressed, get through your classes and not, be so overwhelmed that you're struggling in your classes, you're able to graduate sooner perhaps, and you don't have to like take a break in between to work and save money. You start earning this higher salary range earlier. So if you are able to earn the salary range earlier, over the period of 5 years, working with a bachelor's degree on average versus working with a high school diploma, you're going to have a lot more money in your pocket. So that is what I recommend to think about with student loans. They can be helpful. It depends on what your plan is. So there are also lots of resources that the university has for scholarship options, and they have an amazing scholarship resource where it will use basic information about you to suggest scholarships for you and help you apply to them faster. So that's another thing that is so helpful that you could take advantage of. But consider, what career do I want? What will graduating sooner potentially, or being less stressed while I'm in school look like? Is it worth it? Okay, how can the credit union help? So I mentioned some outside resources for learning about budgeting and money management and credit. We also have a internal resource. We have a financial literacy library that any USU student can use for free. They do not have to bank with us. We also have a student checking program. So I'm going to come back to this slide. Our student checking program is in partnership with the university. We give money back to the university for retention scholarships for students who have this debit card. It's a free debit card. The checking account is free, and it's a fun one. It's got the charging bowl on it, which is really fun. So our program, we've done this for 3 years. We want to incentivize students to learn more about finances and earn while they're learning. So this is kind of the breakdown of this promotion that goes through the course of a year. And this is something there's more information on our website about. I recommend it for students because we're right on campus. We're the only financial institution on campus. Usually can be really convenient to bank with, and then they have this chance to earn $250 with their free checking account. There just has to be $5 in savings to qualify for membership with us. And we can use the promo to fund that $5 if they want. So going back, when I talked earlier about high yield savings, something that we have is a loyalty savings account that earns 6% APY. And the reason we're able to offer 6% APY is because you can't transfer directly into it. It has to be funded in really specific ways, like Roundup Rewards, which is tied to your debit card. Every time you make a purchase with your debit card, you can opt in to have it round up to the next dollar and deposit that change into that gold account. It's similar to the app Acorns, if you've heard of that, which is kind of an investment app. And then promotional offers. So this $250 for our student program, that goes into the 6% APY gold account. So that's another benefit for students, and a really awesome resource. I fund my gold account with my Roundup rewards, any promotions I can get. And I also have a rewards credit card with the credit union. So that's something that can be really helpful for students. And then this is the slide where if students have questions or want to get started, I'm happy to help them. This program, we've done it for several years. It most likely will be renewed next year. So give you some time to think about it. It usually is a benefit for students and something we recommend, but it doesn't expire until December of this year, and we probably will renew it next year. So this is kind of what I want to talk to you guys about. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have questions, come see us at the credit union. My name is Tessa, and I am happy to help with anything that you might need.